In the bustling city of Maykop, Republic of Adygea, a sinister mystery began to unfold in 2009. During the peak of rush hour, as drivers sat idly in their cars, waiting for the traffic light to turn green, a young boy peered out of a trolley bus window, his curiosity piqued by the occupant of a nearby car. To his horror, he saw a woman sitting motionless in the passenger seat, a rope tightly wrapped around her neck. Despite his attempts to alert his mother, she brushed off his concerns, and as the light turned green, the car of death sped away, never to be seen again in the city. Days later, on February 6th, Lyudmila Podolskaya burst into the police station, demanding that officers break down the door to the apartment of her colleague, 72-year-old Valentina Georgievna Chepurnaya, who had been absent from work for 3 days. Concerned that the elderly woman may have fallen ill or suffered a paralytic episode, the police quickly arrived at her residence. To their surprise, the apartment was empty, with no signs of theft or foul play. Chepurnaya had vanished without a trace. As the investigation deepened, detectives learned that Valentina Georgievna, affectionately known as Baba Valya, was adored by her colleagues at the special school for juvenile offenders where she worked as a cook. Despite the grim nature of the institution, she brought joy and warmth to the lives of the troubled children who appreciated her homely, delicious meals. The mystery took an even darker turn when another employee from the same school, 40-year-old Svetlana Volodina, also disappeared. A beloved teacher and mother of 2, Volodina's disappearance sent shockwaves through the community. Investigators began to wonder if the juvenile offenders, capable of theft, robbery, and car theft, could have played a role in the women's disappearances. However, the idea of these troubled teens committing such a heinous act seemed too brutal to fathom. As the police worked tirelessly to unravel the mystery, a glimmer of hope emerged when Svetlana Volodina was found in the city hospital after a suicide attempt. The once happy and successful woman's actions left everyone baffled. What could have driven her to such despair? With one woman found but unable to provide answers, and the other still missing, the people of Maykop were left to wonder what dark secrets lay hidden within the walls of the special school. As the investigation pressed on, the community held its breath, hoping for a resolution to the chilling mystery that had gripped their city. A shocking discovery. In a bizarre twist, investigators uncovered a startling detail. In the days leading up to her suicide attempt, Svetlana Volodina had been hiding out in a rented apartment, avoiding colleagues and relatives. It was there on the table that detectives found her farewell note. "My dear husband, Sergei, and children, I am leaving forever. Don't blame anyone. Financial problems are the only culprit. I got tangled up in debt. I love you." Once again, the family was unable to shed any light on the situation, completely unaware of Svetlana's troubles and mounting debts. The search for Valentina Chepurnaya. This perplexing discovery did little to advance the investigation into the disappearance of the second woman, Valentina Chepurnaya. Could she also be in hiding, like her co-worker? Investigators questioned everyone. Neighbors, taxi drivers, and vigilant grandmothers near the entrances. Their efforts paid off when they found a key witness, a friend of the missing pensioner. As it turned out, on the day of her disappearance, Valentina Georgievna had set off for work but never arrived. Her friend recounted seeing Valentina leave the building around 7:30 a.m., where a white Zhiguli car was waiting for her, driven by a woman with whom she worked. Valentina got in and left with her. A crucial connection. Investigators discovered that among all of Chepernaya's colleagues, only Svetlana Volodina drove a white Zhiguli. Could it be that the two women were together before their disappearances? An immediate interrogation of Volodina was necessary. Soon, doctors allowed questioning of the would-be suicide. Volodina claimed that on the day of Chepernaya's disappearance, she had picked her up to negotiate a debt extension, as she owed the pensioner nearly 100,000 rubles. According to Svetlana, she dropped Valentina off at the Central Market after agreeing on a delay and never saw her colleague again, as she had her own, far more pressing issues to deal with. Unraveling the truth. Volodina's story began to unravel when technical expertise revealed that her phone and Chepernaya's had been together for an extended period, essentially riding in Svetlana's car. It became clear that Volodina was deceiving the investigators. She hadn't dropped her colleague off at the market, but had driven her around the city for a long time. But where and why? Were the women hiding from someone? A lie detector test was arranged for Volodina, which she agreed to, initially suggesting her innocence. However, the results stunned the investigators. Volodina had a positive reaction to the question of whether Chepurnaya was dead, not murdered, but dead. How did she know all this? Was she an accomplice to the killer, or was she the murderer herself? A grim find. Investigators rushed to the garage Volodina rented, where, according to the lie detector data, the key to the puzzle lay. At first glance, nothing seemed unusual, but forensic experts noticed a clumsily concreted floor. Carefully opening the hardened cement, they discovered a large plastic bag at the bottom of a shallow pit containing the body of the unfortunate grandmother. The forensic medical examination determined that Valentina Chepurnaya had died from strangulation, with a rope around her neck being the murder weapon. As Svetlana Volodina stood in the garage with a stone-faced expression, the mask of an unhappy, innocent woman gradually slipped away, revealing a completely different person. A cruel and merciless killer. A life of greed and deception. Investigators soon learned the full details of the horrific tragedy. Svetlana Volodina had always dreamed of big money, but had failed to marry a rich man. So, she decided to earn it herself. Working a modest job as a psychologist, she spent her evenings processing loan documents, believing that the more money she had, the better her chances of starting a profitable business. She invested a large sum in a market store and went bust, with her debts snowballing out of control. Yet, Volodina stubbornly continued to borrow money, even wheedling 108,000 rubles from her kind-hearted co-worker, Valentina Georgievna Chepurnaya. The elderly woman, a gentle soul, took pity on her colleague and gave her all her savings, not knowing that she would pay for her kindness with her life. Volodina never intended to return the money. The fateful day. On April 4th, 2009, Svetlana Volodina drove up to Valentina Georgievna's house. The trusting pensioner got into the car, believing she was being taken to receive her money back. However, Svetlana grimly drove further and further away from the city, stopping in a deserted spot. She coldly took out a rope, exited the vehicle, and opened the door where the bewildered grandmother sat. Chepurnaya understood everything and asked, "Do you want to kill me?" In a chilling turn of events, Svetlana Volodina, a once respected psychologist and educator, was revealed to be a cold-blooded killer. The shocking truth came to light when she was caught red-handed, ruthlessly strangling Valentina Georgievna, a helpless elderly woman. Despite Valentina's desperate struggle for survival, she was no match for Volodina's athletic prowess and sheer strength. With an eerie composure, Volodina loaded the lifeless body into her car, making no attempt to conceal her heinous crime. As if shielded by the forces of evil, she brazenly drove through the bustling city streets during rush hour, the vehicle of death going unnoticed amidst the sea of cars. When Volodina's husband learned of his wife's arrest, he was utterly devastated. Overwhelmed with disbelief, he wept, pleaded, and begged for a reinvestigation, unable to comprehend that the woman he loved was a monster in disguise. However, The horrors of Svetlana Volodina's past were far from over. As the investigation deepened, a sinister truth emerged. This was not her first time taking a life. As an educator, Svetlana Yurievna was well aware that the government provided financial assistance to orphaned students, gradually depositing funds into their personal bank accounts. The orphans' debit cards were securely stored in Volodina's safe. However, the allure of easy money proved too tempting for her greedy soul. Without hesitation, she devised a plan to steal from the very children she was meant to protect. Most of the students, upon discovering the theft, were too timid to seek justice. These vulnerable children, unsure of where to turn for help, remained silent. Only one brave boy, Serezha, dared to fight for his modest savings. Trusting Volodina as his psychologist, he approached her for assistance in finding the thief, unknowingly sealing his own fate. Under the guise of a bank visit, Svetlana Yurievna lured the unsuspecting teenager to his untimely demise. Without a moment's hesitation, she strangled Serezha, dumped his body in a remote forest, and entombed him in a makeshift grave of concrete. The unfortunate child's remains were identified solely by the fingerprints on his lifeless hands. As an orphan with only distant relatives, his disappearance went unnoticed for far too long. As investigators unearthed Serezha's cement-encased corpse, a chilling thought crossed their minds. Could there be more victims? Fortunately, no additional bodies were discovered. In the courtroom, the once respected psychologist and experienced educator regained her composure, fiercely defending herself and pleading for leniency. However, her efforts were in vain. Svetlana Volodina was sentenced to 18 years in prison for her unforgivable crimes. This shocking tale serves as a grim reminder that even those entrusted with the care and guidance of the most vulnerable among us can harbor the darkest of secrets. Let us remember the lives lost and forever changed by the actions of Svetlana Volodina, and may justice prevail for the innocent victims of her heinous deeds.